The streets of Atlanta knew how to keep secrets. But on this night in 1972, one secret was about to be revealed. James Brown's black Cadillac glided through the empty downtown like a ghost. The godfather of soul barely conscious after another marathon session. He had given everything to his music, to his people, to the movement. What he didn't know was that he was about to meet someone who had given even more. The sound hit him first. Sharp, clear, impossible to ignore. Someone was playing his music. Not just playing it, living it. James had heard thousands of musicians, thousands of imitators, thousands of fans. But this was different. This carried weight. This carried truth. "Stop the car," he commanded, his exhaustion vanishing in an instant. His driver hesitated, glancing at the figure on the corner. A homeless veteran, barely visible in the darkness. "Mr. Brown, maybe we should," I said. "Stop." What James Brown saw when he stepped out of that Cadillac would haunt him for the rest of his life. Not because it was tragic, but because it was familiar. Before we continue with this incredible story, please subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss stories that remind us of our shared humanity and the power of music to heal wounds we thought were permanent. Under a streetlight that flickered like a dying heartbeat, sat DeShawn Williams. 26 years old but looking 40, wearing a military jacket 3 sizes too large. His dark skin marked with burn scars that ran up his neck and disappeared under his collar. Souvenirs from a napalm strike that had killed half his unit. His right hand moved across the guitar strings with fluid grace, but his left hand told the real story. 3 fingers were missing, ending at the first knuckle, leaving only his thumb and index finger to do the impossible work of creating music. He had adapted, learned open tuning, made 2 fingers accomplish what should require 5. It was miraculous. And it was the most beautiful thing James Brown had seen in years. DeShawn's eyes were closed, his scarred face tilted upward, offering the music to the night sky. He wasn't performing for money or attention. At this hour, there were no people anyway. He was playing because it kept the screaming in his head from getting too loud, because his best friend Tommy Shepard, a white kid from Oklahoma, had handed him this guitar in a field hospital outside Da Nang and made him promise to never stop playing. Tommy had died 6 hours later, and DeShawn had carried that guitar and that promise through 2 tours of hell in Vietnam and back to a country that didn't want to see him. James approached slowly, his expensive shoes soft on cracked pavement. And when the last note faded, he spoke quietly. "You play like you understand what that song really means." DeShawn's eyes opened, struggled to focus, then went wide with disbelief. The guitar nearly slipped from his damaged hand. You're James Brown." James sat down, on the dirty curb beside him without hesitation, his expensive suit making contact with concrete scattered with cigarette butts and urban debris. "Tell me your story, DeShawn." "I got all night." DeShawn told James everything. Growing up in Cordele, Georgia, Vietnam, Tommy Shepard's death, the guitar and the promise, how he lost his fingers trying to save his best friend. Coming home destroyed him. Lost job, lost girlfriend, nightmares, PTSD, VA pills that turned him into a zombie. Within a year, he was on the streets with nothing but Tommy's guitar. James listened to every word, his face grave, understanding more than DeShawn knew. When DeShawn finished, his voice rough with exhaustion, James spoke with the weight of hard-earned wisdom. "DeShawn, when I was 4 years old, my mother left, just walked away and never came back. I ended up in Augusta so poor we didn't have running water. I was invisible. Nobody saw me. Nobody cared if I lived or died. When I started singing, people said I wasn't good enough, too raw, too black, too aggressive. But I fought every single day to be seen, to be heard, to prove I deserved to exist. And you know what saved me? Bobby Bird and his family took me in when I had nothing. They saw me when I was invisible. James paused, making sure DeShawn heard him. That's why I stopped this car tonight. You're fighting the same fight I fought, just on a different battlefield. Bobby Bird helped save me, and now it's my turn to pass that on. You kept your promise to Tommy even when it cost you everything. Those missing fingers should have stopped you, but they didn't. That's not weakness, DeShawn. That's a soldier, and soldiers don't leave other soldiers behind. James pulled out a notebook, wrote quickly, tore out the page. That second line center. Veterans program, run by good people who understand what you've been through. You go there tomorrow morning. Tell them James Brown sent you. Tell them I'm covering whatever you need. Housing, counseling, medical care, job training, all of it. And DeShawn, I'm not just writing a check. I'm going to check on you. I'm going to make sure you get through this because Tommy trusted you with his memory, and I'm trusting you with this chance. Don't waste it. DeShawn's eyes filled with tears, the first he'd allowed since Tommy died. I don't know what to say. James smiled seriously. Don't say anything yet. Just show up tomorrow. That's all I need. DeShawn entered Second Line Center the next morning. The program was intense. PTSD counseling, group sessions, medical care. The first weeks were brutal, but he learned to manage his trauma, to recognize nightmares as echoes rather than threats. James called every 2 weeks, visited when he could. When DeShawn hit 30 days sober, a Martin guitar arrived with a note. A real soldier deserves real equipment. JB. DeShawn started teaching guitar to other veterans. When he helped them, his own demons quieted. 5 months in, he was thriving. Everything seemed to be working. Then came the crisis. It happened on a Tuesday night. DeShawn went to bed exhausted from group therapy and teaching, but sleep brought nightmares back with vengeance. Not just the grenade, but the entire last week in Vietnam. The ambush killing 3 men, the village where children cried and old women spat, the body bags, Tommy bleeding out, pushing the guitar, making him promise. DeShawn woke screaming, sheets soaked, heart hammering. The breathing exercises failed. Walking didn't help. Even the guitar felt wrong, his hands shaking too badly to play. The walls closed in, memories pressed down like physical weight. And for the first time in 5 months, all DeShawn wanted was to make it stop. The bottle, the pills, the oblivion of giving up. He left Second Line Center at 3 in the morning without telling anyone, breaking the program's most important rule. His feet carried him back to Auburn Avenue, back to the corner where James had found him, the only place that made sense when nothing else did. He sat down without his guitar, having left behind Tommy's memory because he couldn't carry the weight anymore. A convenience store 2 blocks away was still open. $20 in his pocket would buy enough alcohol to quiet the screaming. Just for one night. Just to make it through. He stood and started walking toward that store, each step feeling inevitable and wrong. Half a block later, a black Cadillac pulled up beside him. The window rolled down. James Brown's face appeared, serious and knowing. Get in the car, DeShawn. Shame flooded through DeShawn. Mr. Brown, I'm sorry, I just needed, get in the car, James repeated, voice brooking no argument. DeShawn climbed in, and James told his driver Curtis to just drive through empty Atlanta streets. The center called me 2 hours ago, James said finally. Said you'd left. Said they were worried. So I came looking. Knew exactly where you'd be. Now tell me what happened. DeShawn tried to find words. I can't do it. I thought I could. but I can't. The nightmares are too strong. Tommy's voice won't stop. I keep seeing all the guys who didn't make it. And I'm still alive. And I don't know why. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. James looked at him hard. My mother left me when I was 4. Just walked away. I felt worthless for years. But Bobby Bird's family took me in, saw something worth saving. That's the lesson, DeShawn. When someone believes in you, you owe it to yourself to keep fighting. James leaned forward, intensity burning in his eyes. DeShawn, I believe in you. Second line center believes in you. Tommy believed in you. Tonight you have a choice. Walk into that store, buy that bottle, prove everyone right who said veterans are broken and can't be fixed. Or get back in this car, go back to the center. Prove you're stronger than your worst moment. He paused, then delivered the killing blow. My mother abandoned me. I spent my childhood feeling like I wasn't worth keeping. But I didn't abandon myself. I kept fighting because giving up would have meant she was right. DeShawn, if you quit now, if you abandon yourself, you're saying everyone who doubted you, everyone who overlooked you, everyone who treated you like you didn't matter, you're saying they were right. And I know that's not true. I heard it in how you played my music. You're a fighter, so fight. Fight for yourself the way you fought for your country. Fight for Tommy who can't fight anymore. Fight because you deserve a life that means something. DeShawn broke, tears streaming, all the grief and guilt and fear pouring out in heaving sobs. James sat with him, not trying to stop the tears, just being present the way Bobby Bird had been present for him. When DeShawn calmed, James asked simply, "Are you ready to go back?" DeShawn nodded, unable to speak, but knowing with certainty he was done running. They rode back to Second Line Center in silence, but it was different silence now, weighted with understanding and commitment in the beginning of real healing. 6 months later, James organized the Soul Power Rally at Piedmont Park. Thousands filled the park. James exploded on stage with the JBs. 2/3 through the set, he stopped the music. As sudden silence fell, he spoke into the microphone. "Tonight, I want to introduce someone special. DeShawn Williams, corporal in the United States Army. 2 tours Vietnam, Purple Heart. One of the bravest men I've ever met. Not because of what he did in the war, though that took courage, but because of what he did after. He survived when survival seemed impossible. He fought when fighting seemed pointless. He never gave up on himself even when giving up would have been easier. DeShawn, come on out here." DeShawn walked onto that stage carrying the Martin guitar James had given him, and the crowd erupted. He wore simple clothes, but carried himself with quiet dignity. His left hand with its missing fingers was visible to everyone, and he didn't hide it. James put a hand on his shoulder. "You ready to show them what keeping a promise looks like?" DeShawn nodded, throat too tight to speak. James counted off, "Get up, I feel like being a sex machine." For the first minute, just the band laying down irresistible funk groove. Then James nodded, and DeShawn began to play. His 2-fingered technique was on full display, the crowd watching amazed as he pulled impossibly complex rhythms despite his disability. He played like that first night on Auburn Avenue, like his life depended on it. Vietnam pain was in those notes. Tommy's loss was in those chords. But so was triumph. So was survival. So was absolute proof that broken things could heal, that wounded soldiers could find their way home, that promises made in worst moments could be kept in the best ones. James joined in, voice powerful as ever, and together they created magic. The crowd felt it even without understanding all the layers. They witnessed testimony, Proof that American dream, however flawed, was still possible for those who refused to disappear. When the song ended, applause was deafening. James pulled DeShawn into a hug, and in that moment, surrounded by thousands of cheering people, DeShawn finally understood what Tommy meant. Music is the only thing that beats hate and fear. Not because it makes them go away, but because it proves you're stronger than they are. DeShawn built a life honoring Tommy and James. He became a military preparedness coach in Atlanta, teaching disadvantaged youth discipline and mental toughness. His missing fingers became his greatest teaching tool. When kids complained, he'd hold up his hand and tell them about promises and perseverance. The Soul Soldiers Initiative, funded initially by James and later by donor networks, grew to serve hundreds of veterans and at-risk youth. DeShawn became its public face because his story resonated with people feeling forgotten. He spoke at schools and community centers and veterans' halls, always carrying Tommy's guitar, always playing funk to prove his points. Music became his language for teaching resilience, showing survival was possible when odds seemed insurmountable. James stayed involved, visiting when he could, calling when he couldn't, always checking in. Their relationship evolved from mentor and student to genuine friendship, two men understanding each other's scars and respecting each other's fights. On Christmas Day 2006, James Brown died of heart failure in Atlanta. The world mourned, tributes poured in from every corner. But for DeShawn, the loss was deeply personal. James hadn't just changed his music career, he'd saved his life, completely and literally. The man who stopped his Cadillac on a dark corner had given DeShawn something more valuable than money or fame. He'd given him visibility, proof he mattered, reason to keep fighting when fighting seemed pointless. The funeral was held at the Apollo Theater in Harlem, thousands filling the venue and streets outside. DeShawn was there, invited by the family, carrying Tommy's guitar one more time. During the service, he was asked to play musical tribute to the man who changed his life. He walked onto the Apollo stage and played "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud," the song from that night in '72. Slowly, as a dirge. The JBs joined in, creating a wall of funk that filled the theater. They played for their leader, their friend, their brother. DeShawn played for the man who'd seen him when he was invisible, who'd believed when he couldn't believe in himself, who'd refused to drive past and pretend he didn't exist. When the song ended, there wasn't a dry eye in the Apollo. DeShawn stood on that stage holding Tommy's guitar, surrounded by funk and soul's greatest musicians, understanding the full circle of his journey. A white soldier from Oklahoma gave him a guitar and a promise. A black musician from Georgia gave him hope and a future. Now he stood in Harlem, playing for thousands, proving broken things could heal. Forgotten people could be remembered. One act of kindness on a dark corner could ripple out and change the world. Today, DeShawn Williams is in his 70s, but hasn't slowed down. His military preparedness program has helped hundreds of young people find direction and purpose. Some have served in armed forces, carrying forward the tradition despite difficulties. Others found different paths, but all carry lessons DeShawn taught about resilience, determination, refusing to disappear. He still plays guitar, though age makes his two-fingered technique more challenging. He still tells Tommy's story and James's story, making sure new generations understand freedom's price and the importance of helping those who paid it. Tommy Shepard's guitar, now nearly 70 years old, hangs on the wall of DeShawn's office at Soul Soldiers Initiative headquarters behind glass, preserved, with a plaque explaining its history. Below it hangs a photograph from Piedmont Park, James Brown and DeShawn Williams standing side by side on stage, guitars in hand, two survivors refusing to be broken. Visitors often stop to look, and DeShawn tells the story. Not to glorify himself, but to remind them heroes aren't just the ones on stage. Sometimes they're the ones sitting on a curb at 2:15 in the morning, fighting battles nobody sees, playing music that carries survival's weight. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, another survivor hears that music and stops long enough to say, "I see you, brother. You matter. Keep fighting." That's what James Brown's music had always been about. Being seen, being heard, refusing to disappear no matter how hard the world pushed toward invisibility. DeShawn Williams learned that lesson the hard way, through war and homelessness and the long climb back to wholeness. But he learned it and spent his life teaching it to others. One young person at a time, one conversation at a time, one moment of genuine connection at a time. The funk didn't just make you dance. It made you survive, made you fight, made you believe tomorrow could be different than today. And on the best nights, it made you believe in miracles, like the miracle of a Cadillac stopping on a dark street, like the miracle of being seen when you thought you were invisible, like the miracle of music refusing to let you give up, even when giving up seemed the only option left. Auburn Avenue still remembers Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Movement, the businesses and churches that built Black Atlanta. And it remembers the night in 1972 when James Brown stopped his car and saved a soldier's soul with nothing more than belief and determination and the simple act of seeing someone who'd been invisible too long. That's the real legacy. Not just the music, though music matters. Not just the fame, though achievement was real. The legacy is in lives changed, people saved, proof that one person's belief in another can be the difference between survival and surrender. DeShawn Williams lived that legacy every single day, keeping two promises. The promise to Tommy Shepard to never stop playing. The promise to James Brown to never stop fighting. Those promises, earned in worst moments and kept through hardest years, became foundation for a life that mattered. A life that helped others. A life proving even broken soldiers with missing fingers and endless nightmares could find their way home if someone was willing to show them the way.